you everyone for being here today. Gilbert, thank you for a fantastic presentation. I just want to say that Dr. Pooh is someone who never gives up. And that is what we all need to become right now. We all need to think and start acting like that for wildlife in Alberta and across Canada. So, yeah, I was kind of thrown in here last minute. I don't have much prepared other than a new video that we put together that is going to speak to some of the things Dr. Pooh just spoke to. But before we screen that, I usually like to begin my talks by saying that wolves are not angels and they're not demons, nor are they biological statistics or numbers or resources. A wolf is an incredibly intelligent, sentient, and socially oriented animal. It will care for the injured and protect its entire family. What we're going to be talking about now, or showing and discussing, is more than just about wolves, and it's more than just about caribou. It's about our relationship with the environment that sustains us, and what kind of future we want for the next 7 generations. So I want to give you a little bit of a warning. I don't have any gruesome video in this, but there is one still shot of a dead wolf that was killed in the Little Smoky Range by strychnine, and it was scavenged upon. And there's a very clear reason why this image is used. It's to drive a point home. So this video is about 8 minutes long. It's not a happy one, but it is something that everybody needs to know, so that we can make the necessary change. I just also want to clarify something about strychnine. Dr. Pooh suggested that there's consideration that strychnine might be banned federally, and that is happening for the first time. Consideration, thanks to his work of decades. But that consideration only pertains to liquid strychnine, which is a much lower dose. I believe it's 3%. And that strychnine is used for pocket gophers, rodents, and skunks. Strychnine is also used as a predicide, which is a pesticide used to kill predators. So in Alberta, strychnine permits are 3% for strychnine, or there's a separate permit that we're going to be learning about that is used to target wolves, coyotes, and black bears. Now, predicide, pesticide, or a poison for predators, there's actually 3 that are still used in Canada. That's strychnine, compound 1080, and sodium cyanide. All of these are inhumane killers. They're indiscriminate, meaning they kill any warm-blooded animal. And they've been banned in most other countries and jurisdictions. Alberta is the only province in this country that is currently using all 3 poisons. Shame on you, Alberta. This is archaic, and it needs to change. So I just wanted to touch on a note that was raised. How can we work together? How can we bring groups to work together on this? Banning predicides from Canada is one campaign that Wolf Awareness is focusing on. And through that, we have created something that is much bigger than us. It's called the We Howl Poison Free movement. So right now, we have a minimum of 20 other NGOs across North America signed on to our satellite webpage. It's not about wolf awareness, it's about a movement to ban these dangerous poisons. So the website is wehowl.ca poison free, if anybody's interested. We also work with scientists. We flew Gilbert down there because he is the expert that needs to talk to the people at Health Canada to share his experience and his knowledge, because he's right, just emotion isn't going to change things. But guys, we have the facts behind us. So Wolf Awareness and the other groups we're working with is making a very strong case to ban all 3 of these poisons. But it's not science that's going to change things, it's people pushing the science. And as Gilbert said, that's where we need you, we need your support, and we need people really, really getting as angry about this as we are. All right, so this one's called Silent Howl, and take some questions at the end and give you 2 more facts when it's finished.
Basically, starting in 2005, the province of Alberta has been placing strychnine baits to target wolves in an area where caribou are in decline. largely due to development and resource extraction. Well, ostensibly, it's to recover a dwindling caribou population. The reality is their habitat has been pretty much destroyed, impoverished, fragmented, and that continues. There is still a very strong industrial footprint within caribou range. Largely oil and gas, but there's also been some logging and there's some recreation in there too. Basically, the intention is to target wolves, but pretty much everything on the landscape is dying because poison is an indiscriminate killer.
In our spinal column, for all the nerves that are coming from our hands, they have to connect before they get up to our brain. And same way on the way down. So those inhibitory neurons are the things that stop us from all being spastic and having all our muscles maximally working all the time. And what strychnine does is it blocks the inhibitory nerves. It causes a lot of anxiety and discomfort pretty quickly because the animal stops being able to have control over its voluntary movements. It loses voluntary control. Muscles are contracting sort of randomly and against each other, but nothing can happen. You know, so it's like having cramps in many different parts of your body at the same time. They get extensor rigidity, which means that their legs are back and their back is arched and their neck is back. But at the same time, mammals have to breathe by moving their ribs in and out and their diaphragm up and down. The diaphragm can't contract anymore, so it just sits there. The animal ends up dying most often of asphyxiation.
So you die stretched out in a massive body Charlie horse. And then you die of suffocation.
They can feel absolutely everything. They can hear everything. They're completely aware. And the toxicant gets absorbed quickly. It has its effect within maybe even as fast as half an hour or less. And then obviously animals stop feeding. So that means that whatever's in their stomach, whatever hasn't been needed, hasn't been absorbed yet, is sitting there pretty well in its original state.
Carrion feeders like magpies and ravens will dig into the gut pile first, or into the intestines, and they'll expose that raw strychnine. And if they eat that pellet, they'll die almost very, very fast metabolism in birds, so they die quickly. They die at the site, and then along comes the lynx, which eats birds, or a fish, or a fox, or whatever else, and eats that. And so they're always getting raw strychnine as they're eating these birds down the line. Yeah, and it's absolutely indiscriminate. The only animal that can tolerate strychnine is a pig, which is amazing, that they can gobble it up like candy. The last FOIP information that I seen on this poisoning campaign, I remember I was around when it first started, and I had no idea of the plan, right? I just heard that we were doing it. I wasn't stationed here anymore. I heard that we were doing it, and I was surprised that we were allowed to do it. Helicopter gunning wolves and poisoning wolves for the management of a species of wildlife, because we'd never done that before in Alberta. I don't even know if Western Canada has a program, or anywhere in Canada had a program like that. You know, if you're prepared to put out 29 baits in the wilderness to kill wolves for the purpose of helping caribou, then you're also prepared to accept that every other animal that eats flesh in that entire forest, it's okay to have that as collateral damage if you reach your goal of killing the wolves. And I thought, so what we really have here is we have the caribou up on a pedestal here, and everything else, and the wolf is the one that's the bad guy, and everything else we can kill.
This poison is not only not sanctioned, it's on the list of not to be used, because we know very well that it's very inhumane, it's non-specific, and basically any pest control that's non-specific is really worrisome, and we know this one isn't. And the Canadian Vet Medical Association has a position statement that specifically lists strychnine as a not to be used, not acceptable predator control or pesticide. The Alberta Vet Medical Association supports the Canadian Vet Medical Association's stand on that. The Canadian Council for Animal Care.
And if we don't have that thing in our toolbox, well, then we'll have people that are better trained at trapping, that are better trained at doing other things to catch wolves, and maybe start to think a little bit outside the box on how to deal with wolf problems over the long term. But if we always have that thing in our toolbox, we probably won't think of other things to do. And so that's why I don't support poison anymore.
So this poisoning program needs to be shut down. It's a disgrace, it's shameful, it's misguided, it's ineffective, and it's a smokescreen as well, because it is not going to be what saves caribou in the end. As long as we're still in their habitat, we're ineffective, and we're not serious about doing anything to preserve caribou in the long term.
I would really like to make sure that Health Canada people at the pest management group understand that some of these, that this particular pesticide is against any ethical or moral stance that we have as veterinarians and as just people who are concerned about animal well-being, animal welfare. Even if you can accept the need, because humans have taken over so much of the world, of controlling some populations. There's humane ways of doing it and inhumane ways of doing it. This is inhumane and unethical. And I wonder if the people at Health Canada who make these decisions understand that. I can't imagine they do.
Okay. So pretty succinct, and I know everyone wants to go have lunch, so I'm going to try to keep this short. I just wanted to provide a little bit of a positive, potentially, update on the campaign, and some more numbers that you have to sit with to understand really what is happening. So the strychnine program, as mentioned in the video, started in 2005. That's when we started aerial gunning wolves as well in the Little Smoky Range. That's now expanded to 7 different caribou herds, and it's approximately 2,500 wolves that have now been killed under the guise of caribou conservation. So the 200 wolves killed by strychnine, not very high, but that's really to show you we're killing more non-target animals than target animals with strychnine. 13 different species. One of those species was a grizzly bear, also endangered in Alberta. The numbers I'm using are bare minimums. These are numbers obtained through usually the Freedom of Information process or reports that come out after that. And these are reported by government officials. Not every carcass is retrieved or found. So again, these are minimums. Now, the last thing in terms of the Alberta program is that up until this year, this has been misguided by the province of Alberta. So wildlife is managed provincially. This year, this summer, Section 11 agreement came out because caribou are threatened federally. So they're part of the Species at Risk Act, and we need to come up with a plan, which means that Canada is also now on board with the province of Alberta suggesting to continue the wolf program, the wolf kill program, where it currently is, and suggesting expanding it to every caribou range across the province. This is devastating to me. Again, it's not just about caribou numbers that we have to look at. Sure, if we kill every carnivore around a caribou and we feed them and we pen them in, we're probably going to see their numbers increase. I don't call that good science. I call that a zoo. Conservation is about functioning ecosystems. It's about predator-prey dynamics, thermoregulation, migration, the way that animals relate to each other. But simply increasing lambda, or the population projection of a single species, is not good conservation practice. Now trust me, I want to see everything possible happen to protect caribou. I believe at this point, we've lost the chance for some herds. We've gone too far, we've pushed them past their limits, and that's really sad to recognize. I hope some of them do have hope, but that really stems down from managing ourselves, not managing the other animals that are around them. So in terms of the good news, last thing, okay, Gilbert was part, and so are some of the other people in this room. In 2017, we had 50 experts submit a letter to Health Canada seeking a ban on all 3 of these pesticides. What that triggered was the first time ever in the history of Canada. Last year there was a consultation on the humaneness of strychnine, cyanide, and compound 1080. Not to say are these humane, but to say should we consider humaneness when we're using poisons on wildlife? It was an overwhelming response, more than 4,000 comments. So that's a really good sign. We have no idea what those comments were. I've never met anybody who supports poison other than Dr. Herview, who's placing it on the ground. But this is a time to stay engaged, and if strychnine wasn't placed last year, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, right now I'm thanking the province of Alberta for not causing harm last year and encouraging them to make the right decision again this year and in future years. So it's a really strong time, an important time to be pushing this. When the snow starts to fall is when the wolf kill programs begin. So please, guys, put it on your radar. Use the tools that have been developed by other organizations and my own to hone your message,